Just by the title of this video, it should be pretty clear which is better, because the word beta in terms of games refers to a state of the game in which it isn't finished, and something that isn't finished is usually broken, unpolished, and lacking in content. However, the word alpha or beta might also imply that it had content or ideas the finished product may not have gotten, or it may have had things that looked nicer, performed better, and overall was better, but were gimped in the final version. So if you were judging beta and final versions of games solely based on the fact that one is complete and the other is not, then sure, the clear winner in such a case would be the final product, because you're getting something that has most of its bugs removed and should function correctly. But I don't believe that's where the comparisons end, because I truly believe that in the case of Dead Rising, what was shown in its early development stages looked more appealing, performed better, and had more interesting things than the final game. I think first off, it goes without saying, the most apparent change is the zombies. Now the reason for this is that in the early development stages of Dead Rising, Capcom decided to go with a dark or scary approach for the game. And this aspect reached every part of the game, not just the zombies. However, the zombies were the most affected by this design change. What made the zombies have a dark feeling to them was their actual design, of course, and the reason for this is Capcom didn't hold back on the gore factor for their zombies, so they tried to make them look as chewed up and dead as they possibly could. However, when the ESRB rating came along, Capcom found they could attract a bigger audience by simply making the zombies look like common, goofy Walking Dead, and the gore factor behind them wasn't necessary anymore. This is why zombies in the final game practically lack any blood splatter whatsoever, and they just look like dirty versions of NPCs. This completely ruined the horror element of the game, which might have been their intention, but it's a shame to see what the zombie aspect of the game eventually became, which was now more based on humor rather than fear. Which is fine, because Dead Rising was always a funny game first, but it became only a funny game. Another view on the zombie changes was how dark their overall appearance was. The early builds of Dead Rising lacked much variety in the zombie models, but this issue was masked by the amount on screen. The original design of the zombies were meant to not clash with each other's color palette, but rather all resemble the same gruesome corpse, using shades of black, blue, and gray as their primary colors. This made them look like a giant wall of dead corpses approaching you, rather than a giant rainbow of color. Again, this was done to remove the horror element of the game, and make it easier for the player to distinguish the zombies from their environment. The brighter the color palette made it easier for them to stand out. Capcom found that during playtesting, the developers found it hard to clearly distinguish the zombies from their terrain, making them pop out at you when you least expected them to. This was one of the core reasons why they changed the zombies into what they became today. The zombie aspect plays itself off as being a minor inconvenience to the players, and should be only treated as an obstacle, not a selling point. This was fine because they put all their effort into making the player be involved with the story of the game. The game's aesthetics didn't matter as much as how compelling each case mission was to play. But what's a real shame is they originally had much nicer looking zombies, but more importantly, they looked more like zombies should. Now, moving on from the zombies, another immense change that Dead Rising went through was the lighting. Now, many different builds of Dead Rising played around with many different settings and locations. And with that came many attempts at lighting, playing with various hues, many attempts at dynamic texture reflections, various amounts of motion blur upgrades, brightness to darkness contrast levels, varying amounts of depth of field, etc. Every single change they made to their lighting or shader system created the lighting we have in the final game, which for 2006 was very impressive. However, what's funny is that Capcom showed off many attempts at lighting changes from 2005 to 2006, and many of which looked more visually appealing than the final game. Now, in the case of Pre-3 version 0.50, a very early February 2006 build, this was one of the builds I'm talking about. If you have seen my videos on this build, you know that the security room looks amazing. However, let's not focus on the lighting in the security room, because this lighting was simply made to demo their ability to render high quality models and have high quality reflections in real time. What we're going to focus on is the overall lighting in other stages throughout the mall. And for this instance, we'll use Entrance Plaza. As you can see, the lighting during morning or early in the afternoon was much darker and felt a lot scarier in tone to the final version. This was of course changed to give the mall a more happy feeling, which as we know is what Dead Rising became, but it shows that Dead Rising was pushing for a spooky element first. Some could argue that the lighting looked this way due to the game being highly unfinished, but even if that is the case, it still looked more impressive than what we got. One of the comments I receive the most when I make a video on the beta builds, especially when I show off footage from Pre-3, is how amazing the shotgun running animation looked, and believe me, I know. One of the coolest aspects about the very early builds of Dead Rising was its ability to make each weapon seem individual, as it gave many weapons their own identifying animation. Such as the shotgun. When you run with the shotgun in the final game, Frank holds it to his side just like he does with every single item. However, in early 2005 builds, and even pre-3 2006, Frank would have his own carrying animation for the shotgun, just like he has his own carrying animation for the handgun, both of which are nothing like when carrying, say, a sledgehammer. This gave a complete sense of individuality to each weapon you would find. It's understandable that Capcom cut the majority of this feature because they wanted to keep as much of the game simple as possible, but in doing so, they cut lots of visually appealing mechanics. They also removed lots of features with weapons, such as oddly, the ability to control the spray of the fire extinguisher, probably because it was causing more issues than anything, but it's still awesome to see. So yes, lots of beta animations, such as the shotgun, are in fact better, but I wouldn't say all are better. I much prefer Frank fiddling with his camera while idle in the final game than this static breathing pose. Even though I love beta animations, they aren't necessarily better, so it's really 50-50. So there you have it. I don't really think there was many missteps in Dead Rising's final product, but there were certainly things cut or changed that didn't need to be. Dead Rising is still an amazing game, but maybe if they kept these early concepts, it could have been even better. Or worse. That's up to the viewers to decide. Thanks for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.